What is going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and you know what time it is. You know what day it is. It is time for Nocturnal Transmissions, presented to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. With me, as always, is the homeboy Rob.
What's going on, guys?
Yes, Rob is having a bad day. A little bit of a bad day. So we're gonna.
That's not completely true. I've had a bad couple of hours, not necessarily a bad day.
Okay, fine. He's had a bad half a day, and so we're gonna give him the floor for a little bit so that he can air out all his grievances.
Oh well, I don't necessarily have any grievances to air. It seems like I have a lot of things going on tonight, and it just seems like everyone, all of a sudden, they need me for stuff out of the blue. It's like, come on, like, you know that, like, I was like, available during this time. Why are you talking to me now? And because I have to, in a few hours here, I'll be starting work at a very late or very early, depending on your life choices. So there's that, trying to help out people with their essays, trying to, get enough rest, all that good stuff. So I'm all over the place right now. Yes. I got this going on. I got to help you out with something out later. So I'm being dragged.
Depending on how you look at it, it might help you.
Well, okay. I didn't say it wouldn't. I'm just saying I'm being dragged in a couple different directions all at once. So it's right. What's that torture device that that stretches people out?
The rack?
Yeah, the rack. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel right now in my mind.
All right. So with all that said and preface, let's get this conversation started.
Okay.
So. Yes.
Well,
after you.
To get the conversation started and such, we after last week, there was some news that broke out. Essentially, I didn't get to it until after the live stream, so I unfortunately didn't get a chance to really talk about it.
Uh-huh.
And as you all know, I'm a big baseball fan. And one of my favorite players, who retired years ago due to injuries, was a pitcher by the name of Roy Halladay. Pitched for the Blue Jays, pitched for the Phillies, was a really cool guy, great pitcher. And he unfortunately recently passed away in a plane crash. He was not a super experienced pilot, but he is experienced enough to be able to, fly on his own and stuff like that. And that takes a certain amount of quite a few hours to be able to go fly on your own. Be a licensed flyer on your own. It takes a lot of training and stuff. And he had he bought kind of a small aircraft, which seems like all these air crashes seem to be with these small aircraft, but that's besides the point.
Right, Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, John Denver. Denver.
But anyway, so yeah, he was in a plane crash on Tuesday, and unfortunately he passed away in the plane crash. I think I didn't hear the results of what happened, if he crashed, couldn't get out, and drowned in the water, or if it was just kind of right on impact that he, was killed instantly, or something along those lines. But what I wanted to talk about, and because the thing about Roy Halladay was he was a really solid baseball player, solid teammate, but he was also seemed like a very solid person in real life. Was a good dad, had a lot going for him. Did a lot for the community, so forth. like one of those type of guys.
Yeah, real salt of the earth types.
Yeah, definitely. Like just worked hard, cared hard, kind of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple of broadcasters the next day who I would liken it to being just absolutely terrible in their because most people are like, yeah, it's a tragedy, and they're sharing their stories and kind of enjoying the life of Roy Halladay. Because he's only 40 years old too, so he was not a old guy.
So he was young.
It was young guy. And I brought up now it wasn't an article that was written. It was on a sports program called what was it, Felker and Mass, and it's they're in Boston, and this article kind of talks about what was said, and I personally found it very horrible what they said.
Mm-hmm.
So it was on Wednesday. Popular Boston radio host Michael Felker generated controversy with his comments about the death of former MLB pitcher Roy Halladay. Halladay died Tuesday when his small plane crashed off of Mexico off Tampa, Florida. Felker called Halladay a moron and pointed to a video a witness shot shortly before the crash that showed Halladay making dangerous dives towards the water. Wee woo! Look, I just landed on the water, everybody. I'm going to tweet it. Splat, you're dead. With 2 kids. Moron, Felker said Wednesday afternoon. A day later, to open the Felger and Maz talk show on 98.5 The Sports Hub, Felger addressed the situation according to CBS Boston. In a nutshell, I would say that I feel bad about what happened on a lot of levels. I feel bad about what I said and how I conducted myself. And this is his apology after the fact, but I don't really... Honestly, when you make comments, usually, you're saying what you really feel, and then you, I gotta back off, to kind of save my job or, save my ass kind of thing. Not because you actually give a shit. To say it was over the top and insensitive is really stating the obvious. It was obviously those things, Felger said to start the show. I could come in and say, I apologize if I offended anyone, but that's fake and hollow and everyone hates that, don't you? Isn't that the worst when someone comes in and says that? Well, he continued. Besides, the only folks that I would really want to extend that to are loved ones of Halladay. They're the ones dealing with enough right now not to have me come over the top and do what I did yesterday. So, sorry doesn't do that justice if it relates to them. That one's going to stick with having to answer to my poor judgment over the past 24 hours. I think it's full of crap. Mm-hmm. But what was also really bad, pretty much disparaging, his whole, thing, he's, the full thing of what he had said, he called him kind of an idiot and a jackass repeatedly. Got what he deserved was another thing that he used in that. And his actual quote is what he said about Halladay. It angers me. Someone who I guess, I don't know, is so cavalier about life, just doesn't appreciate the tenuousness of life and is willing to screw around with life and death, Felger said, especially when you have children or a family. It's like, okay, that's... And his rant didn't stop there. Halladay's decision to be a recreational pilot was offensive before mocking the former MLB pitcher as essentially nothing more than a thrill seeker. Your little joyride is that important to you that you're going to risk just dying, Felger said. You're 4 years old and a multimillionaire with a loving family, and to you have to go get that thing where you dive bomb from 100 feet to 5 above the water with your single-engine plane with your hand out the window. Wow, that's disturbing.
Mm.
But what he also went on to say, because he also had some, for those of you guys out there too, know that I'm also a huge NASCAR fan, and he had some disparaging remarks about Dale Earnhardt's death in the Daytona 500. Was it now 16 years ago now, almost 17 years ago now, and it was more of what would he say here? Felger also backed away from inflammatory comments he made about the late NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt, Sr., that is, who died in a crash in 2001. Felger remarked of Earnhardt, "The race car driver who died, I root for the wall. I really do. That ain't no tragedy. I'm supposed to feel bad for you? Give me a break." Wow. I meant part of what I said yesterday, and the words I didn't mean. It was just dumb hyperbole. Yeah, I don't think so. I didn't mean that, Felger said. There's stuff that I did mean, but the presentation and the tone and the hyperbole was just low class, bad, not good. I don't feel good about it. What was the hyperbole? What was the stuff that you didn't? Yeah, that's what I want to know. Like all this stuff. Like what did you actually mean and not mean? It's one thing where it's people go and do thrill-seeking stuff all the time, and it's not about because you don't give a shit about your family or yourself or other people. It's just there's some stuff that anything that has any sort of fun in it has some danger involved. Same thing with I could go out and drive or go on a commercial flight. That's just as that's almost as dangerous too. Honestly, there's a lot of science, but it feels like magic. You're in this giant tin can in the air that's very heavy, and yet I'm in the air. That's really remarkable. But I could die doing that. Does that mean that I don't care about my family or care about loved ones or care about myself? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say to the widow of the businessman who was conducting business, not on that commercial flight, and not going up there for seeking thrills, but he was actually trying to make money for his family.
Yeah. Now I see when someone is doing something when you hear all those stories of or people drag racing and street racing and all that stuff, and then they have they lose control of the car and killing themselves or other people. There we have something that would be somewhere that's dumb. Honestly, it's a tragedy that it happened, but it's not it's something that could have been completely prevented and shouldn't have happened in the first place. And it's one thing if they kill themselves, but when you put other people in danger, that's where I'm okay, that's where we can have a conversation about people being dipshits. But this is on another level. He wasn't he was testing out his skills as a pilot or testing anything they could do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he was overwhelmingly doing something dangerous. We don't know the whole story, what was going on, and I guarantee that man has never flown a plane in his life, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. And the same thing with stock car racing. I mean, any sort of motorsport is inherently dangerous, just as football is, or baseball has dangers in it. Soccer, hockey has dangers in it. But if those sports didn't exist, this guy wouldn't have a job. So why are you shitting on the memory of someone who died in a sport? I mean, that's disgusting to me. And you might as well, it's well, then just quit, because you obviously don't like your job as a sportscaster.
Has this guy faced any consequences since he put out he published that article?
This was written by CBS News. This wasn't written. They were just quoting about his apology. But I honestly his apology seems what was it? Well, there was a baseball player, another former baseball player who, by the name of Kevin Youkilis, he was Oakland A, Boston Red Sox. He played around the league. Many people called for Felger to be disciplined, including former Red Sox fan favorite Kevin Youkilis, who said, Michael Felker has and will always be a low life behind the microphone. And New York Times culture writer, I guess another sports writer, Sopan Deb tweeted, "It really doesn't get much more lower than what Michael Felker said about Roy Halladay's death. Just awful."
Mm.
There was another quote here too. I'm trying to find in this article. But like honestly, like his quote unquote apology seems really just I don't know, empty to me. It's like he said, that's one of those things where sometimes, like, I do believe that there's some people, and you have to go back to you build up this credibility about yourself. Sometimes things are said like just kind of, it gets taken a certain way, and it's like no, that's not what I said.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are like they're done on video, yet they're you look at like the transcript of it, and it's like, how callous is that? But like when you actually watch the video, it's like, no, it's a joke. Like no one who watched that would see that as like him being serious or something like that.
Yeah.
So
there's everything can be taken out of context. If it's especially if it's in if it's in print.
I did watch the video. It wasn't out of context.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just saying like how quickly people tend to jump to conclusions. I mean, in this case, the proper conclusion is jumped to. But nowadays, people are just immediately jumping. It's like it's like, oh yeah, I want all babies to die. And then someone takes that and puts it in print. It takes out the tone, takes out whatever all the context, and it can make me sound like a monster.
Exactly.
So,
and like I said, there's some people who've built up enough equity where it's like where they make an apology like, hey, like I said these words, yes. I think it got taken out of like context and like in the full scheme of things, or or we've seen the media where they've taken they've edited it down to a certain amount where it's like it makes it look like someone is saying or doing something that they didn't actually say or do.
Right.
But then there's like people like this who you actually meant what you said. Like, you don't bullshit us and say that the only reason that you're apologizing is because there was so much backlash probably from not only the public, other baseball players, maybe NASCAR fans as well, and where to the point where that coverage on the show because of your dumbass comments. So you have to, put out a formal apology.
Could you repeat that last bit? Robert, could you repeat that last bit? You're cutting in and out there.
No, what I was saying is that his, but there's people like him who they say what they mean. Like what he said, that was what he actually believed.
Right. Yeah.
And he, the only reason that he's making a quote unquote apology is because there was so much backlash from the community, from baseball, NASCAR, the public, and the his bosses are probably like, you need to put down a formal apology or you're fired, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's what this feels like to me. Like, because even like his apology seems so, like, he's even saying like, I said these things and like, yeah, it's kind of, I didn't mean to say them, but I meant to say them at the same time. So it's like
sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all bullshit in my opinion.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah. It kind of sounds pretty bullshitty to me, also.
And they're not like, it's one of those things. Like, I'm not necessarily like, I didn't know Roy Halladay. Like, I'm basing my opinion off of him, from what I saw, watching him for so long on TV. And the same thing with Dale Earnhardt. Like, yeah, I don't necessarily, I didn't know him, but like he was.
Yeah, you didn't personally know him, but
Yeah, but his story, both Halladay and Earnhardt's story, like they're, were very inspiring. Earnhardt's, definitely a lot to me. He was kind of a hero that I looked up to. And you hear about all like the behind the scenes that you don't necessarily like see on TV. That they, it's like don't tell anybody that I did these things. The good things that they did.
mm-hmm.
And that that's the stuff that's like. You're essentially like shitting on the memory of someone who was really like a pretty damn good person,
Mm-hmm.
and that to me is really like disgusting because we have so many people out in the world now that are in the limelight that it really shouldn't be awarded any sort of awe or respect,
honor or esteem.
Yeah, exactly. But they have it, and then but then you have these people who should be, given a little bit more light as to who they are and like the type of people that they were. Yet you're shitting on their memory. Like that to me is disgusting.
Mm.
That's all I had to say on that.
Yeah. You feel better?
I feel a little better. Yeah.
That's good. Good. Now you're all alive because before we were all like, say, oh, I hate life and all these damn people like pulling me every which way. But now you got some now you got some color back in your cheeks. So right, you never feel more alive than when you're getting all riled up.
That's true. Yeah, it was just something that I heard about like last week, and I was I really couldn't wait to talk about it on on Nocturnal Transmissions, just because. Yeah, I mean we've done some other filming since then for some other stuff, but I really taught it on there because we're not going to be getting it for a little bit, so.
Yep.
So this is kind of our avenue for somewhat recent events.
Yeah, current events, things that are on our, things that are that we just need to get off our chest, things that really grind my gears, type of stuff.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you because, I mean, I was sharing you before, about that stupid video about, that one dumb chick, and how she was basically blaming all men for like gun violence and it's seemingly all violence in general. And it's just like one of the things was like, yeah, we give we give baby boys like toy guns, and it's like, yeah, go and be a man. Yeah, it's stupid because I mean, I don't know about you. I don't know about you and your dad, but me and my dad, we never had that talk where you know he told me that I was entitled to certain things, or I wasn't a real man if I didn't go on a rampage or if I didn't hit a woman or anything like that.
Oh, you haven't had that talk yet?
I know, right? I know. It's like the double secret patriarchy meeting. We never got the invite.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's seemed like I thought it was just a regular thing.
No, right? Did they move? Did they change locations? Because last time, it was at that place, but did they change it?
Must have been.
Must have been. See, yeah, I know. So, but then I don't know. Maybe because I don't know. Like my address has changed, so from the first time, from when I signed up to like now, my address has changed a couple times. So, maybe they just keep sending it to the old address. I should let them know. I should let them know. So I make sure. So I for sure get the invite to the next one.
Yeah, it sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah. Oh.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at like how everyone's talking about it, it's like all all this stuff is like it's all men's fault. It's all white people's fault. It's all someone else's fault. It's not like, hey, you know what? There's some people there's evil in the world. There's some people that just have evil intention and that they want to create the most damage to society as they can. And in a lot of cases, there's people that have been in trouble before. They shouldn't have been able to acquire the weapons that they acquired, yet they were able to.
Right, yeah, like that with the Sutherland shooter, that dumbass senator from Arizona, he called it domestic violence loophole.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Like, no, it's just it was just because he was tried in a military court and they have different standards, and yes, in civilian life or in the civilian courts. Yeah, him beating on his wife and and his stepkid, would count as domestic violence. But in the military courts, it's only regarded as assault.
Yeah,
and it's not as though one is worse than the other. It's just the way it was set up. He was under a certain code and ethic. And that's and that was the code and ethic that he was tried, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't malicious. It was basically a clerical error,
Yeah,
because they didn't send it off to the FBI, which then they would have said like, oh damn, like it's like beat his wife and his baby. That's domestic violence, and they would have put the proper stamp or whatever, put it in the proper pile or file or whatever, and if everything went right, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Yeah, but then even then, like it's also like these people also find a way, like there's other ways to get weapons too, like
right, like they don't think that there's such a. I really wonder if they think the black market is like it's like a Walmart or a Target, that you just go and you can buy weapons, like it's an actual like physical brick and mortar kind of thing, and people can just go and buy weapons, and they're like and then even at the black market they'll perform a background check, and and in the black market they'll uphold the law. It's like, are you freaking kidding me?
No.
Right,
don't think so.
Right? I mean, yeah, what's that old saying? Like, if you truly, truly want something, nothing's going to get in your way.
There's all these, all these law-abiding criminals. Who knew?
Yeah. I mean, again, I want, we live in California, and we have some of the stupidest laws regarding guns and, like, the purchase of them or the keeping of them, the storing of them. And I'm, it's worrisome because, I've said it before. I can't handle small firearms. I can handle a shotgun. I can handle a rifle, but I can't handle a handgun, which means I cannot defend myself. Not that I could in California, because they're really, really, really stringent about their concealed carry permits, or how they give them out. They give them to judges. That's the bulk of the concealed carry permits in California. Los Angeles specifically,
yeah.
They give them out to the judges because people are taking shots at judges. But I mean, to say that that a law-abiding citizen doesn't have the right to defend themselves is ridiculous on the face, without any qualifiers. That assertion that a law-abiding citizen cannot defend themselves.
It's crazy talk. It really
is. Right? And then I mean, like, you want to talk about institutional racism? gun regulations are the ultimate example, because they are only established after the abolishment of slavery, and a certain sect of people, didn't want newly freed slaves to have weapons.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. So gun regulations are inherently racist, and people don't know this. And and again, it was implemented by a certain group of people who are represented by the color blue and a jackass.
Oh man.
Literally.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, I mean, there's I don't think, I should really look into it again, but there was a case in California to legalize concealed carry permits, for everyone. But I can't remember. I gotta look into how what the ruling was, or I think it already went through, but I can't be sure what the ruling is. I don't think it was good. I don't think we got the right to carry firearms on our persons.
That's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can't handle small firearms, and I like me a lot, and so that's why I want every law-abiding U.S. citizen to have a gun, so they can protect my crippled ass. I know it's selfish.
Yeah.
It's selfish of me, but hey,
self-preservation. You have the right to self-preservation, my friend.
I know. How selfish of me, right? How selfish of me. God, I am just the worst kind of person.
And I think I may have said this before. I don't remember if it was here or like one of the other shows that we do, but I think the danger in what's going to end up happening is if we keep pushing like this narrative of, well, we need more gun control. Like, okay, well, first of all, there's actually very, very strict gun control in a lot of areas. I think. They keep like saying, "Oh, well, it's not enough. These people keep getting guns." Well, that's because a lot of them are criminals that they find ways to, around the law.
Whoa! Are you saying that criminals have no regard for the law?
It's shocking, I know, right? It's
what?
Deplorable.
Are you kidding me right now? Are you really sitting there and telling me that criminals have no regard for the law?
I know it's crazy, but there's this whole subsect of America that just doesn't give a shit about the law.
Unbelievable.
But what's gonna happen is it's gonna keep pushing this hysteria, and it'll come to a point where the public is not informed about their rights and about the reality of the situation. I think Steven Crowder put it best. It's an argument between gun owners and the completely uninformed.
Yeah, of course.
And what's going to happen? It'll get to a point where everyone will be so afraid. It's like, yes, please, and they're going to hand over that right to preserve themselves against tyrannical governments or foreign or domestic, and they'll have no way to protect themselves. And
actually,
but see, the thing is, once you give up that one, now you can hey, free speech. That's the next one that's going to go. Or vice versa. It could be either one. Like, hey, we can get rid of these. The Bill of Rights. We don't need these. Right. And then the American experiment ends, and we cease to be what we are.
Yeah, because actually during World War II, one of the biggest deterring factors of Japan from invading the mainland was that they knew that we had a Second Amendment, and they're like, and they said, it's quoted as in America, behind every blade of grass is a rifle.
Yep.
Because they knew that
And,
if they try to invade, they'd be dealing with an armed populace, and they're not going to stand for that. So they're going to go out there onto their front lawns and onto their streets to help fight, help repel the invaders.
Yeah, and and what we're doing is that, like, if we give that up, like there's not going to be that, like, deterrent into coming into the States as much. I mean, once you get past the if you can get past the military somehow, like, there's no stopping these guys.
Exactly. And here's the idiotic part of people arguing that there needs to be more regulations, or they need to give the government the guns. And it's that those kinds of people think that the government is incompetent, and they'd be right, but they want the government to be the only one with the guns.
Yeah, it seems like very, like, backwards thinking,
right? And I mean, right now, like, Trump is the government, and there's certain people who think he's the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler, and so you're saying that you want Adolf Hitler to have your guns.
Yeah. All right, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Go for it. If that is your logic, if that is your reasoning, then you deserve it. You deserve it. I'm gonna be over on the other side with the freedoms and the guns.
Yeah, I'll take liberty any day.
Right.
It's one of those things where, liberty, freedom, the free market, all that stuff. Like, are there some inherent cons? Yeah, of course. Like, there's always someone is always gonna, will find an advantage and get over on someone. But I also find too that if you're dishonest and, like, just a terrible person, that you can also, kind of, if allowed to just do what it does, it will kind of recorrect it.
I mean,
self-correct.
Yeah, because capitalism is a self-correcting system.
Yeah,
it really is, because not everyone can stay, on top forever. Because there's always gonna, especially, when it's done right, competitor, competition always makes things better.
Yep.
Because, like, what was it? Back in, like, the late '90s, early 2000s, laser eye surgery. It cost like $2,000. It cost like $1,000 per eye.
Yep.
Right, but after many years and the free market, so they can innovate and perfect the technology. Now getting LASIK is like $500 an eye. That's a freaking bargain.
Exactly.
From $1,000 per eye. $1,000 per eye. That's $2,000. I mean, you could do just one and have only half perfect vision.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's like, but a really good way, a really good illustration. Another good illustration about the power of the free market. Samuel Morse, the inventor of the telegraph, Morse code and all that stuff. He was tasked, after he invented, the telegraph and Morse code, he was tasked to basically wire up the country. But he was an idealist, and he was an inventor, but not so much a businessman. And so he said, "Oh, I am not capable of doing this. But who could be more capable than the U.S. government?" And so he gave over, his patents and whatever to the U.S. government, and they were responsible for wiring up the country, making communications possible, cross country. And 5 years went by, and and they only had like the northeast, the northeast part of the United States uh, wired up, and so some wise and brilliant government officials we're not doing such a good job with this. We're really not. So why don't let's contract this out? Let's license the designs and things to like some companies, to some private companies, and let them handle it. And within 2 years, they had cable running across the Atlantic to England and to Europe. In 2 years, the government had had the patents, had the designs, had the infrastructure to accomplish this, but they were only able to accomplish like a portion of the northeast of America. But then when they gave it to like the private sector, they were running freaking cables to Europe across the Atlantic, making communications possible, Atlantically, or I don't even know that's a word, but
transatlantically.
Yeah, transatlantically. So, there's your example. Even back then, when as antiquated of a technology as we view the telegraph and Morse code, at the time that was the internet of that age. That was the internet. That was the internet of that age, and the government couldn't do squat to commercialize it, to expand it to the necessary size, that only private industry can accomplish. I mean, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same with like this actual internet right here. The government had it since like World War II. The ability to communicate between computers and such. But it wasn't until the 90s when the government decided, all right, you private companies, figure out something to do with it, and we got AOL.
Yep.
Yeah, we got AOL.
But it was still. As terrible as AOL was, it was still it was something that was.
Yeah, it was amazing.
At the time, it was amazing. Definitely.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was amazing at the time. I mean, you couldn't make any phone calls, or depending on your carrier, if grandma called you, you weren't able to download fully, the Photoshop naked pics of Sandra Bullock or whatever.
Yeah,
but it was amazing. It really was like wizardry. And now look at it.
You almost had to have like a second phone line to use it. You'd almost have to have a second phone line to use it.
Some families went that far and they got a second phone line just so they could have the internet and have their home phone.
God, that 56K modem.
Oh my gosh, that was the worst. It took you the better part of a day to download one song. Kids out there, the few kids that are watching this, let that sink in there for a second. Let that sink in. It took the better part of a day to download one song.
Yeah.
I love it when we get into those old
really
man.
Was the dark ages.
I love it when we get into like the old, back in my day. That should be a segment. It's like back in my day.
Hell, I mean, for up until about a little over 20 years ago, I didn't even have a computer in my house.
Yeah. What?
No, I was saying for until about 20 years ago, I didn't have a computer in my house.
Yeah. I mean, the first person in my family to have a computer was my sister, and that was because she went off to college. And back then, it was like a huge tower and like a fat CRT monitor.
Oh yeah, things took up so much freaking space.
Yeah. And so yeah, like my sister was the first one in our family to have like what is it like a home computer, up, a personal computer, a PC, as it were. But
yeah, nobody was using Apple back.
yeah, it was like Apple was, Apple was still, or the Apple as we know it today was still a long ways off. But
Yeah,
it was
well, it
just
was funny because Apple was it was a running gag and how shitty their products were.
yeah. It was amazing how Steve Jobs was able to turn it around, and it's really Apple product is all marketing. It really is, and I love because I'm definitely a PC guy, and I love it when people come and talk to me, talk to me about like, oh, what do you use for your videos, like what programs and stuff, and what computer? I was like, oh, I have a PC. He's like, why don't you have an Apple computer? I was like, I don't like them. He's like, why? They're for artists. And I'm just like, who told you that? He's like, oh, well, like the commercials, I was like, yeah, that's marketing. They, Steve Jobs was a great marketer. He just, he flashed, pictures of like, what was it? Like Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald and Picasso, and it's like, so you make that association with Apple and art, art. And so,
He was a brilliant jackass. That's all I had to
yeah, he was.
Well, and the other thing about to kind of go a little further into is like you have I always laugh when people say like, oh man, like they're so innovative and stuff. It's like, well, technically no, they're not innovative.
No,
they're good they're good at perfecting some of the technologies. I'll give them that, like, because they come out with something that's been out on the market for like 5 or so years.
Yeah,
and like
all
now
it is repackaging.
Yeah,
repackaging.
Stuff was like Android phones have been doing that for like 2 or 3 now, like, or same thing, like PC has had that forever. Like why like now just Apple's just now getting around to it. I mean, that's fine. Like they don't want to just throw something that's a little bit broken or not perfect out there. I'll give them that.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as them being like innovative, I wouldn't say that. Like their marketing is definitely innovative.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in some cases, it's a little bit more like easy, user friendly for people who don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's just very streamlined, is what it is.
But I'm kind of with you. I've always been more of a PC guy because I felt like Apple anything is it limits you in a lot of ways. Where I'm like, no, I don't need the training wheels. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Right? Yeah. I'll figure it out.
Like hell, like our up by up down wouldn't happen if I didn't have a PC.
That's true.
Yeah, because I would play games on a Mac.
Yeah. And spoiler alerts, we're doing this show on a PC. Ooh!
Well, I mentioned that in the first episode that like I unfortunately don't have the money to go out and because the retro gaming market, if you guys don't know, is very, very expensive in a lot of ways. I mean, there's still some like cheap games and like you can get some stuff for pretty cheap, but I eventually want to take us into games that are a little bit more rare that you can't get, and to acquire those takes a lot more money and money that I don't have. So we are using an emulator and ROMs, but we are playing the games as though like we are actually playing on a console. So we're not using save states, we're not doing any of that stuff outside of like, hey, we're pausing our game here, and then for the next episode we'll move on like to I'll from that point on forward, so it has kind of fluidity. But as far as like, oh, I died here, let me like load back and stuff like that, we're not doing any of that. Like, because I think that's kind of cheap in a lot of ways. So,
Word. Oh, I don't know if you've heard, but they might be. I don't know if they are. But they're probably making a Mario animated movie.
Well, we'll see if that's going to be any good because I'm excited. Yet at the same time, I'm also not excited because most gaming anything has been a disaster as far as movies go.
True. But will this one get? I mean, hopefully it'll be better because this will be an animated one, so it'll take out the clunkiness of being live action.
True, that's true.
Or like having like that weird kind of like translation issue, from pixel to cartoon to real life.
Right. Well, I also wonder too if because I had also heard that there was gonna be Mega Man like stuff on Netflix too. That they were working
like a cartoon
on
or
Mega Man,
like
yeah,
a show?
I think so. It's an animated show, so I think it's a show. I don't remember if it's a movie or a show, but I had kind of heard rumors that there was something going on with Mega Man. So
yeah, and I heard Amazon's doing.
I will say I did enjoy that cartoon as a kid, the Mega Man cartoon. That was really good. So they didn't fuck that up, thankfully.
Yeah, and what was it? Yeah, and Amazon's doing some sort of Lord of the Rings TV series.
I had heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure they're doing like prequel, sequel, or like in between.
The only thing they can do now is this I can never pronounce this fucking title, but the Simalarin.
Oh yeah, like the companion book.
Yeah, although I think that they kind of I'm not sure if when they did The Hobbit they were kind of like trying to connect those two books because they first of all they made The Hobbit much more darker than it much more darker. Jesus, I can't speak English. Much darker than it was in the book because The Hobbit was actually lighthearted.
Yeah, I heard. I mean, I never read it, but I heard it was more of a lighthearted, like adventure story.
Yeah, it was meant fun adventure where in the movies they kind of just definitely went away from that and they extended it way longer. Like there was a lot of stuff where like this never happened. Like what is going on? So I'm wondering if they kind of like added some stuff or we're trying to make some stuff as well. And so I don't know what they're gonna do. It'll be interesting.
I wonder.
Maybe it could be like a in between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, where it's like what happens with like Bilbo, or they could do some stuff with Smeagol or whatever.
Or maybe the corruption of Saruman.
That could happen too. So I mean, there's definitely stories to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be interesting. It just the only thing I was kind of I watched part of the Hobbit movie. I felt like that was where I felt they went too far away from the book. Where obviously they can't show everything. I know that. Like I'm not one of those guys who's like, why did they show that part? I'm not. It's a movie. Like they can't do everything.
Right.
I felt like Lord of the Rings like hit all the important points of that story.
Uh-huh.
If it met like the atmosphere, the characters, and honestly, like how I imagined it as I was reading it is how it was put out on the screen, which was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say, perhaps the darker tone could have also been influenced by Guillermo del Toro, who was supposed to originally direct the Hobbit trilogy, but for some reason he backed down or was replaced, and then Peter Jackson kind of like hurriedly took over production.
Maybe that's what it was, and it just I just don't feel like I'm not saying it was a terrible movie. It wasn't like it was one of those where it's like it's not good, but it's not bad either. It's just I think if you took the name away from it, it would probably make it a lot better. Just because it's a good adventure tale, awesome. But the fact that the Lord of the Rings name behind it, the Hobbit name is behind it, and it's like there's certain expectations that you have from that,
right?
And it just it felt like it kind of didn't meet those expectations.
Yeah, it just didn't hit the right. Yeah.
I was looking for that lighthearted tale that just wasn't there in the movie.
Yeah, I guess they were trying to add that connective tissue to the first trilogy, the first Lord of the Rings trilogy, with like the idea of Sauron, coming back and that kind of thing. But honestly, I don't think it was wholly necessary to have that like subplot of where they have that meeting with the wizards and they reveal that like oh no, an agent of Sauron was spotted. Could it mean that he's coming back? It's like that. I mean, I think that was a bit unnecessary. And a little a little insecurity about like, oh, we have to make sure that it ties to the first trilogy. Kind of like a certain other trilogy, prequel trilogy that we know.
Oh man!
Just saying.
Well, I mean, see that one, like it is supposed to connect, but like like the Hobbit was never really meant as a. It told the story of Bilbo Baggins. That was the point of that story. It wasn't necessarily meant to connect it to, loosely it was going to connect to Lord of the Rings, but but yeah, it's at least with like the Star Wars prequels, there was a reason why it was supposed to connect, because it passes from the failure of the father onto like the redemption by the son, and kind of it's kind of like this and now the new trilogy is kind of like the failure of the grandson now. So I at least there was a reason why it was just I felt like this, and I've said this many times, the Star Wars prequels were poorly executed, but have a great story at the same time.
It's weird. It's weird, but I think I told you this, but Alex Jones does a really good recap of the prequel.
No, really?
Yeah, he does like a recap of the prequels, but it's funny because like the way he recaps it and summarizes it and like points out like subtle like parallels that happen like in like our universe, in our world. It's like holy crap, and it makes it like you kind of gives you a newfound respect for the prequel trilogy. That up. Yeah,
and just so you know, like, well, yeah, we talk about Alex Jones before. It's like there's some there's some stuff that he like talks about where it's like it's like okay, like I see like where he's going, and but then there's some stuff where it's like, all right, I don't know if I believe that so much. There's some stuff, and he kind of comes off like he's a very smart and intelligent guy, and it just I think the way that he looks and like how intense he gets, he just comes off as this tinfoil hat crazy guy.
I ain't going to make the frogs gay.
Yeah. But I am interested in watching that Star Wars clip.
Yes.
Actually, one more thing about Infowars. It's funny because they're one of their big editors who you and I both really enjoy is Paul Joseph Watson.
Uh-huh.
He seems like he has the same like ideas, but he's so like etiquette's not the right word, but like the way that he enunciates and describes things.
There's a little bit more suave and eloquence to him.
Yeah, he's more like you can feel his emotion, but he's more in control. Whereas like Alex Jones gets a little bit like, he gets so worked up and fired up that like his face turns all red. It's brilliant. I love watching both those guys for different reasons, but it's just the frog guy.
Yeah, no, I'll admit I do from time to time I do watch Alex Jones, and I am surprised at at some of the things that he does get correct. I'm just like, whoa, he was right about that. Like
he gets enough correct where it's like you can't just dismiss what he's saying.
Right.
Yeah, because there's been some stuff where I know like it's actually like it, and because I've seen like some of this stuff like take place, like that's real. Like he's, and then or like a few months down the line or like a couple of years down the line, it's like now everyone's starting to see it. It's like, and it becomes a big news story. It's like, well, these guys were talking about that, like, and you laughed at them.
Yeah, yeah. I remember like early on, I think during Occupy and a little bit of the protests that were happening now. He was saying that oh yeah, they're fake protesters. They're cops who are kind of doing undercover work as protesters, as rioters, just to start just to like start shit. And there's this one clip that he pointed out, like this one protester who kind of like kind of screamed "narc." Because he was just kind of trying too hard to like fit in with the crowd.
Narc.
Yeah, exactly. And
who's the narc?
Like it's that Jamaican guy. But yeah, because he kind of the undercover cop kind of gets found out, and what was it? He kind of like pretends to fall into like the cops, making it look like he was attacking them. So like the cops have to like pull him out, and arrest him. But really they're just keep making sure he isn't found out to be a cop. But someone was videotaping it, and then it freezes on the guy's boots, on the bottom parts of the boot. And it had the same treads, same like identifiable markers as the boots the cops were wearing.
Yeah.
And it's not as though like, oh, that just must be a really popular pair of, combat boots. It's like, no, like those boots are, department issued.
Yeah. I had heard about that, and it's like it is you do see like a lot of that, and or like like some of it is just to fuel some of the anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, there's enough that he's talking about where it's like you can't just dismiss him, like because he does, and like I said, he's a very smart guy. Like there's a lot of stuff that like he reads and goes off of. Like he doesn't use like notes and like a teleprompter and stuff like that, which is ridiculous because I couldn't keep all that information shit in my head.
Yeah, like when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and then he was just dropping facts after facts, of stories that he's read and stuff, or the statistical like knowledge that he just somehow that he has like memorized, and like and he like and Joe Rogan's sidekick Jamie, he was like having trouble like keeping up, like pulling all the information that that Alex Jones was like just vomiting. In a sense.
Yeah, that's the what's like you said, he a very brilliant guy. Just he just kind of comes off as this like big old crazy man with a tinfoil hat. That's but I've even been saying like to my friends, is like honestly, like some of the guys that we would have laughed at like 10, 15 years ago, like those are the guys that like maybe they actually had it right. Like I was saying like with Corey Feldman, another crazy person, but lo and behold, the guy was right. Like that, there's a Hollywood is a really deplorable place, and like what they're doing to like kids and like women and all sorts of like stuff going on. It's and we all laughed at him, and I was like, "Oh, Corey, you crazy bastard! You just want to get your 10 minutes of fame." But it's like, no, he was dead serious. And yeah, and same thing with like someone like Alex Jones. Like if he'd been around 10, 15 years ago, we would all laughed at his ass. But they still kind of do in a sense. But
yeah, or at least they try to discredit him like crazy. But it ended up, but somehow it always ends up like backfiring on them, because like with like the whole Megyn Kelly interview thing, they did a piss poor job of trying to make this guy look like shit, and then he like let him know, I was like, hey, are you gonna are you gonna give me an apology, or am I gonna release the phone conversation that we had? And he's like, what? And like, what are you talking about? I just, I presented it honestly. This is what happened. And then he drops like the recording of like their conversation over the phone. And he's like, and she like said like, oh yeah, it's not gonna be a hit piece. I'm not gonna try to get you those gotcha moments. And then like they did like a an edit where like it showed like her saying one thing but then doing the other in the interview. Yeah. And it's like now, see, it's like, yeah, you had your chance, Megyn Kelly. You had it good at Fox, but now you're dancing with Kathy Lee and Hoda in the morning. Like, think about that. Although I will give her credit because she was the one that went hard on Donna Brazile.
Thank you. Yeah. Well,
about the debate questions.
Yeah.
But still, you done goofed, Megyn Kelly. You done goofed.
Yeah, it's one of the what should I call it? The other thing, like kind of on, like you said, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you get like Paul Joseph Watson, who's very like well reasoned, very articulate, and he does more pieces on the kind of the how. Why culture is important, and like talking about like like these things.
I love this piece on like why postmodernism is or like contemporary art and like the influence of postmodernism on contemporary art is just utter bullshit.
Yeah,
sometimes literally.
And even like, and just the crazy bias that's going on in the media, where it's like they're not telling the story. They're giving.
Yeah, it's not editorializing.
It's not that they're like not even like giving facts per se, but they're giving misinformation. They're not telling anything, or they're either not saying things on purpose, or like by like they're outright lying, which is it's really terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think another great thing that Crowder says is like who says you have to be unbiased, because on his show he was like saying on my show I clearly have a bias, but I still give you all the facts, and then you can
like why.
What?
Yeah, he gives the facts to back up like why he's saying what he is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he admits to having a bias, but he still presents you with all the information, and even is gracious in like kind of like affording certain things to the other sides, and maybe they did they did say this, but maybe they was taken out of context, but then. And he just leaves it up to the viewer to take the information and do with it as it will, as opposed to outlets like CNN who claim that they are unbiased while simultaneously letting their bias out for all to see.
Yep. It's and it. Now it's getting to the point where it's almost like it's a joke, really.
Yeah, it really is.
But the scary thing is that there's still like a lot of people out there that they look, they're wanting information like what's going on in the world, and they look to these channels and sites, and they're just getting that they should be able to trust for like unbiased news, and they're not getting it, which is really kind of terrible, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I tell everybody, I tell them watch, read everything.
Yeah.
Cause
even if even stuff that you don't agree with, I always say, hey, yeah, read. If you know your position on things, read the other side too, because it helps to build up an argument a little bit better, and saying that okay, you guys are saying this about this, but the reason that's wrong is because of these facts here, and so you can actually have a more well-reasoned argument because you know what the other side is saying.
Yeah.
You don't pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's why I haven't unfriended all of my far left leaning friends, because I want to know what they think. Yeah. I want to know what they think.
I'm always I honestly I love a well-reasoned, more liberal type of person that. Hey, you know what? I might not agree with you, but I'm at least, if you're well-reasoned, you actually want to have a discussion. Yeah, I'm not going to be like, your views are disgusting to me. It's and shut them out. There's a lot of, I would say I'm somewhat more in the middle, but I definitely lean more on the conservative side on certain things, and but then someone normally someone like a Dave Rubin, I'd be like, I don't want to listen to this guy, but he's like I said, he's a very well reasoned guy, and
he still has the conversations. He still has the conversations.
Exactly. That's someone that I could have a conversation with. People like that you can, they're not just shouting at you like the crazy people shouting in the air, to protest Trump. There's people who are very smart. It's I don't like Trump for there's certain reasons that they don't like them, but they're fairly well reasoned. I could see where people don't like him. He's he can be a bit of a bully. He kind of has a little less tact than I would like. But yeah, stuff like that. I'm, or if you don't like certain policies that he's doing, but where it's, oh, he's a racist, he's a this, he's a that. It's okay, well, what?
Now you've lost me.
Yeah, well, what did he do? Well, he just is. The news said so. It's well, okay, so you haven't actually done any you're just believing that you don't actually listen to what he said.
My counter would be, well, the news said that it was supposed to be 75 and sunny, but it's 105 and burning.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Well, we have done an hour and some.
All right.
So
well,
I think
how it always
seems to end, right? Yeah, cap it off. Any final thoughts? Any final words?
Well, just to watch Up by Up Down on Thursdays. We are continuing our playthrough of Super Mario 3 for the Famicom, which is a lot harder than the American version. So it's a little bit of a twist. The title of last week's episode was same name, different game, because it really does. There are certain elements that change how you play that game. You have to be a lot more careful than in the American version. There's also, we finished filming for the main podcast, so that's going to be dropping out in a few weeks. So stay tuned on that. But other than that, those are my final thoughts.
All right, boys and girls, that will do it for Nocturnal Transmissions for tonight. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Come and join the conversation, but not in that lame way like Pepsi. Don't forget to catch Rob's show on Thursdays, dropping every Thursday, Up by Up Down. And yes, be on the lookout for the next main podcast. We have a very lovely sit down with Kim. What? What was that?
Oh, yeah, it was one of my friends. Yeah.
Yes, one of Rob's friends from back in the day. It was a very lovely conversation. So be on the
first
lookout.
Female guest.
First female. Oh, spoiler alert! First female guest. So yes, and to our VidMe viewers, thank you for watching this show. If you want to come join us live, the link to the YouTube page is in our profile on our VidMe site. So if you want to come and not watch this, 2 days after it was live streamed, but actually watch it live and participate and ask us questions or tell us to shut up, you're more than welcome to do that. Don't forget to follow us on our social medias, Twitter at PodcastCOJ and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all of that said, we thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.